Welcome back, everyone, to the Late Night Review. And tonight I want to talk about, to me, one of the best horror movies of all time. It's Friday the 13th 4, the final chapter. To me, Jason was at his scariest here. I mean, he ran after you. Ted White is one of the greatest Jasons of all time. My personal favorites are Richard Brooker and Ted White. I mean, they all did a good job. Really, really did a good job. Kane Hodder did a great job. C.J. Graham, Derek Mears. I wish he had the opportunity to be in more. I wish he would have. But this Friday the 13th, Part 4, is among my favorites in all the franchise. I think I always go back and forth and I'm fighting kind of within myself. Which one do I like best? Is it 3, 4, or 6? Those are my personal favorites of the franchise. When part 6 came out, that was my new favorite one because I'd like 3 and 4 the best. Part 6 became my favorite movie when it came out, and I'd watch it over and over and over again. They always rented it for me as a kid, and I watched it. And I love the whole Frankenstein aspect, how he's brought back to life. Maybe I'll do a review of that one in the future, but Friday the 13th, Part 4 and 3, I think are responsible for this reoccurring nightmare that I used to have when I was a kid. The only horror movie that really, really ever scared me a lot was The Omen Part 1 and 2 and 3, but especially the first one. And the second one at the beginning when they go down into and they see E. Gale's wall. They go down the ladder and they see his painting on the wall that was painted hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and it's him, and it's the same face as Damien Thorne. It's hard for me to sleep a couple of times when I was a kid. The Omen 1 and 2 especially scared me. But there's been other movies that gave me nightmares but didn't particularly really scare me. And there's a few scenes in Friday the 13th 3 and 4 where Jason will be running. Big guy, powerful Jason will be running, chasing a person up the stairs, and that gave me a reoccurring nightmare where he was chasing people up the stairs. In my nightmare, which was reoccurring as a kid, Jason would be after me, and I was a little kid, and I was running up the stairs trying to get away from him, and he was right behind me. I knew he was behind me, and it was a reoccurring dream. So hard to get away from him, and I could feel almost like his hand touching me, like he was just about to get me. And it was raining outside. The window was right here. I ran towards it, tried to get it open. I knew he was behind me. Opened the window, started to get up on the roof, crawl on the roof, and it's like he would be following me up there. And then I would jump off the roof and sometimes fly or float because it's a dream and get away. And I did get away, but he was always right behind me. Jason Voorhees was always right behind me in this dream. And I had it a few times, and then I kind of dreaded it a little bit. I didn't want to have it again. You know, I like the character. He's an evil character. Freddy's really evil. Jason is too. I think Freddy's more evil because he's always been he's always been sharp and mentally there. Jason wasn't. He wasn't. Jason was never mentally right. As a kid, he had problems, the story, but Jason, it was kind of a victim as a kid, and he got angry, became more and more, he's a different character than Freddy. Freddy's much more evil when you think about it, when you really think about the background of the characters. But Jason's extremely powerful, violent, scary. So, and he's evil because he's killing innocent people as well. But he comes up and he's chasing me in this dream, and I'm trying to get away as a kid. It's the same thing over and over again. Try to get through the window. It's raining outside. It was raining in part 4. So I think that was when he's chasing the potential victim up the stairs, and he almost gets her, and she jumps out the window just to escape. She's terrified, and just almost gets her. Chris almost gets her, and just she fell, and but when in the dream I flew away. But it's just a reoccurring dream. Friday the 13th Part 4. I know I rambled on a little bit, but it kind of gave me a reoccurring nightmare. I think it's from 3 and 4, but particularly Part 4. And Part 4 has always been one of my favorites. When it first came out, when I was a kid, I saw it. It was my favorite Friday the 13th. And then Part 5 came out. I liked it, but it wasn't really Jason, and I was disappointed. But I still liked it. I liked it better as I grew up. Part 5. Part 6 was my favorite when it came out, and it was for quite a few years. Now I go back and forth between 3, 4, and 6 after I've settled down. Part 4 is really well done. You have the character of Tommy Jarvis, and you have Jason, played by Ted White. Same kind of story. One thing I want to touch on is, sometimes I'll watch review channels. They do a great job. I want to kind of go at this from a little bit of a different angle than from maybe it's out there, maybe I missed it, but what I want to say about Part 4 is that, and I like the rain, I love the atmosphere. One of the things I like about the Friday the 13th franchise, being somebody who used to go camping when I was a kid, I love the setting of the forest. I love nature. I really like being in nature, and the fact that it's out in the forest and he's out there. And have you ever thought of this? I have. There's a connection to me. I don't think they did it on purpose. I don't know. But when I see the story of Jason and his mother, and just his franchise in general, it kind of reminds me of the old English poem Beowulf, how the giant Grendel came to the hall of the Vikings were in there at nighttime in the hall, the Northmen, the Vikings, the Danes, and he attacked him, he killed him, and then he left. And then later, and he came from the water. He came from the water. I think there's an archetype too with Jason. I mentioned this about Freddy. There's an archetype with Freddy, but I think there's also an archetype with Jason. And maybe there's an archetype with Grendel too, because I see Grendel and his mother similar to Jason and his mother. Both their mothers come back for revenge. Water plays a key part of the story. When you read the original Beowulf story, I used to have the book and I gave it to somebody. I kind of wish I still had it, but I used to have the book. And when you read the original poem, Grendel has scales, almost like fish scales, in the book, so he can go underwater. He lives underwater. When you read that, and when Beowulf goes down there to kill him, when Beowulf goes down there to kill his mother, I should say, because Grendel had already died from their previous fight, it's underwater. And he cuts her head off. In what I read, he kills her. In some depictions, is he cuts her head off, if my memory serves me right. And also in a cartoon, there's a really good cartoon about it, and it was the voice of Beowulf, I think, was done by Fiennes. It was Ray Fiennes, not Ray Fiennes, but Fiennes is like, and I'm sorry, but I'm drawing a mental blank right now, but he does a really good job. He was in Enemy at the Gates. He was in Luther, played Martin Luther in a movie. Really a good actor. He did the voice for Beowulf, and I'm drawing a blank, but Mr. Fiennes does his voice, and it's a really good cartoon. And in there, Beowulf cuts his mother's head off. Well, in Friday the 13th Part 1, Jason's mother got beheaded. And there's a lot of similarities there. Jason drowned, but Grendel didn't drown, but his mother came back to avenge him. And I see an archetype there, maybe an ancient archetype that we're all kind of familiar with. Maybe, maybe not. But I see a similarity between Jason Voorhees and his mother and Grendel and his mother. It's pretty fascinating to me. I could talk about it for a long time. Friday the 13th Part 4, I got sidetracked, but I think it's interesting. Part 4 has always been one of my favorites. Part 3 is where he originally gets the mask. I like Part 4. It's in the forest. They utilize more rain. It rains in Part 4 more than it did in part three, but I think it rained a little in part three at the beginning with the thunder and lightning when he gets that couple, when he goes after that couple and he's walking between the sheets. Maybe there was no rain, but I thought there was a little. I know there was some lightning. Usually there's rain with lightning, but in part four it rains a lot, and there's just a really terrifying kill in the basement where Jason gets the guy that Chris meets, and Corey Feldman, Tommy Jarvis's character meets. Remember, he has a backpack. He's looking for Jason because Jason killed his relative. I think it was his sister, if I remember right. And he's trying to go after Jason. He's trying to hunt Jason down. And then I think I'm forgetting his name, but he was in Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think he had a reoccurring role, and it was either The Next Generation or was it Voyager or Deep Six Nine? I don't remember, but he had a reoccurring role. A lot of people were, in that show. I think Terry O'Quinn, stepfather, did reoccurring roles in the Star Trek series. But anyway, rambling on again. But part four, Friday the 13th, has that just a terrifying kill in the basement. But the thing is about myself that I have to say in all these horror movies, I don't watch it for the blood and guts. Now, when I was a kid, my friends and I, we wanted to see the latest shocking thing, and we wanted to see it. But I've changed. I don't watch horror movies because of the blood and guts. I watch it because of the story, interesting characters and their backstories, the chase, the fight. And I like stories where good wins in the end. Sometimes to have a dark ending is good and it matches well, like in The Thing with Kurt Russell. That ending was good. Fit the movie. I think it was brilliant. There's a lot of dark endings that are good and have their place, but I really like when good conquers evil. I don't watch these movies because I'm cheering for the killer. No. I'm watching these movies because it's a chase, it's exciting, it's like a roller coaster. You're not going to get hurt by watching the movie in the sense of someone physically, Jason really coming through your door, breaking the door down and getting you. It's not like that. It's not, for me, it's not the blood and the guts. I do like when good wins. I do like when good conquers evil. So usually at the end of these movies that I like, the ones that I like A Nightmare and Friday the 13th, Halloween, usually the good character wins. And I like that. And I prefer that type of thing. I really do. So I don't watch it for the blood and guts. I got to say this. I have to mention this because this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Most of you have seen it, and me going over the different scenes and different parts. Trust me, it's a good movie if you haven't seen it, but trust me. But I have to say this. I have so much nostalgia for Siskel and Ebert. When as a kid, I used to watch their movie reviews. Didn't always agree with them, but most of the time I did. Most of the time, I think they got it right. And I loved them. I have still watch reruns of them on YouTube. I grew up with that show, sneak previews, all that stuff. I really like Siskel and Ebert. Disagreed with them strongly about this movie, Friday the 13th, Part 4. They both liked Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. That was inspired by a true story. And in that movie, because I've seen that when I was a kid over and over again, I don't like watching it now. Maybe once in a while, but I don't really want to watch it. It's very disturbing, and certain parts are sick, disturbing. I kind of feel the same way about that movie as Siskel and Ebert felt about Friday the 13th, except for this. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, I think was well done, and I watched it, and I think it was well done. It was interesting, but I don't want to watch it now. It shows these killers filming a family as they're killing them, and I think it pisses me off so much. Makes me, and like Michael Rooker, who's really a good actor, he said that he should get the death penalty in real life. And they should. People who do that to families, they should be executed. It pisses me off. I didn't like that scene at all. I watched that movie as a kid. As I got older, I didn't like it as much. Those guys definitely should be taken out. That really makes me angry. Get Bronson in there and have him take care of them. But they both liked Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and I know why, because it was well done. It was inspired by a true story, but they hated Friday the 13th Part 4 because of the violence. Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer was more violent. I love Siskel and Ebert, but Henry Portrait of a Serial, even though it was inspired by a true story, it was more violent. And maybe because it was inspired by a true story, it touched real lives. It really touched people's lives, and it's horrible. Henry Lee Lucas and his partner Otis Toole, they inspired Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. And it was horrible to see certain scenes in that movie. But Friday the 13th, and by the way, they both hated Friday the 13th Part 4. I love Siskel and Ebert, but they both hated Friday the 13th Part 4 because of the violence. Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer was not only more violent, but it touched real lives, real people, and the guys that they portrayed were so evil, so horrible. May they die and burn in hell. Jason's a fantasy character. He comes back to life. You kill him, he comes back. It's fantasy horror. He's not a real character. He can be killed. He comes back from the dead. It's fantasy horror. I love Siskel and Ebert, but I strongly disagree with them about Friday the 13th, the Friday the 13th series in general. It's fantasy horror. What I hate is when real killers do this to real people and film it. That's what I hate. I don't like that. And especially at the end where they don't get destroyed. You don't see them get destroyed. So anyway, but Friday the 13th Part 4 is really one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And not for the blood and guts personally, but for the chase, for the character of Jason, the forest. It kind of reminds me of Beowulf and Grendel. See, I don't look at it in the way that Siskel and Ebert would say that certain people are looking at it. And by the way, not too long ago, I watched Siskel and Ebert again on YouTube, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was one of their shows where it says, if we pick the winners for the Oscars, and most of the time they get it right. Gene Siskel loved Rocky IV. Roger Ebert didn't. That was a fun episode. And I watch those guys still because I got a ton of nostalgia for them. Have all the respect in the world for those two guys. And they both passed away years ago, but always loved the show, always loved them. I have more nostalgia for that show almost than any television show that I used to watch. So that should tell you something. They were fantastic. Disagree with them sometimes strongly. And Gene Siskel didn't like Casino, but Roger Ebert liked it. So I agree with Gene Siskel on Rocky IV. Disagree with him about Casino. And I really had a good time. If you want to see some movie reviews from years gone by, check out Siskel and Ebert. but check out Friday the 13th Part 4. I really like this movie. I don't know how to rank it. Maybe one day I will rank the Friday the 13th. Not sure. I'm a casual YouTuber. I do this, just casually. I don't really have anything planned out. I don't have a script. I ad-lib all this stuff. I don't rehearse. So, anyway, this has been the Late Night Review, and please share this video, like and subscribe, tell people about the channel, and good night, everybody.